Hello everyone, welcome, hi, hey, welcome. We're doing something a little different today. I wanted to read some books with you guys. I wanted to read some Japanese fairy tales with you guys. I don't know, I just felt like it. If you want to read along, it's in the description below. It's just on Project Gutenberg, which is a great website if you just want to look for some things to read. They're totally free online. Let me see the full title. This is Japanese Fairy Tales, compiled by Yae Theodora Ozaki. We'll probably read 3 today, but we might do more or less depending on the time. Okay. Let's see. Or maybe would you guys prefer it if I had a picture of it over here? Might. Okay, give me a second. Give me 1 second. Let me switch to my loading screen real quick. I'll be back. I don't know if that looks okay. Hold on, let me see if I can put this. Ooh. Is that okay? I don't know. Is that okay? I'll leave it up for now. If you guys don't like it, I'll take it down. But the first story we're reading is called My Lord Bag of Rice. I don't know what to expect from it. Actually, it's not scrolling with it. Yeah, you know what? Forget it. Let's scrap this. Okay. If anyone... The sidebar is just for chat. If you guys have anything to say, just let me know. But we're reading My Lord Bag of Rice. Long, long ago, there lived in Japan a brave warrior known as Tawara Toda, or My Lord Bag of Rice. His true name was Fujiwara Hidesato, and there is a very interesting story of how he came to change his name. One day, he sailed forth in search of adventure, for he had the nature of a warrior and could not bear to be idle. So he buckled on his 2 swords, took his huge bow, much taller than himself, in his hand, and slinging his quiver on his back, started out. He had not gone far when he came up to the bridge of Seto no Karashi, spanning one end of the beautiful lake Biwa. No sooner had he set foot on the bridge than he saw lying right across the path a huge serpent dragon. It's a little hard to read because the language is a little weird. Or, I mean the writing, the grammar, I should say. The grammar is a little weird. Its body was so big that it took that it looked like the trunk of a large pine tree and took up the whole width of the bridge. One of its huge claws rested on the parapet of one side of the bridge, while its tail lay right against the other. The monster seemed to be asleep, and as it breathed, fire and smoke came out of its nostrils. At first, Hidesato could not help feeling alarmed at the sight of the horrific reptile lying in front of his path, for he must either turn back or walk right over its body. He was a brave man, however, and putting aside all fear, went forward dauntlessly. Crunch, crunch! He stepped on the dragon's body, now between its coils, and without even one glance backwards, he went on his way. He had only gone a few steps when he heard someone calling from behind. On turning back, he was much surprised to see that the monster dragon had entirely disappeared, and in its place was a strange-looking man who was bowing most ceremoniously to the ground. His red hair streamed. He was streaming. He's a live streamer. His red hair streamed over his shoulders and was surmounted by a crown in the shape of a dragon's head, and his sea green dress was patterned with shells. Hidesato knew at once that this was no ordinary mortal, and he'd wondered much at the strange occurrence. Where had the dragon gone in such a short space of time? Or had it transformed itself into this man? And what did the whole thing mean? While these thoughts passed through his mind, he came up to the man on the bridge and now addressed him. Was it you that called me just now? Okay, what does this man sound like? Yes, it was I, answered the man. I have an earnest request to make. Do you think you can grant it to me? If it is in my power to do so, I will, answered Hidesato. But first, tell me who you are. I am the Dragon King of the lake. My home is in the waters just under the bridge. He's a dragon guy, Mr. Dragon Man. And what is it you have to ask me to do? And what is it you have to ask of me? No one speaks like that anymore. Not really. I don't think so. I could be wrong. Does anyone speak like that anymore? Let me know if you speak like that. I want you to kill my mortal enemy, the Centipede, who lives on the mountain beyond, said the Dragon King, pointing to the high peak up on the opposite shore of the lake. Ugh. Centipede. Is it a giant centipede? Did he say? No, it's just a regular centipede. I don't know, it's probably a giant centipede. Okay, this is a long speech. Alright. I have lived now for many years in this lake, and I have a large family of children and grandchildren. For some time past, we have lived in terror, for a monster centipede has discovered our home, and night after night it comes and carries off one of my family. I'm powerless to save them. If it goes on much longer like this, not only shall I lose my children, but I myself must fall victim to the monster. I am therefore very unhappy, and in my extremity, I determined to ask the help of a human being. For many days with this intention I have waited on the bridge, in the shape of that horrible certain dragon that you saw, in the hope that some strong, brave man would come along. Strong, brave man, you say, huh? That's not part of the script, sorry. But all who came to this way as soon as they saw me were terrified and ran as fast as they could. You are the first man I have found able to look at me without fear, so I drew at once, and you were the man of great courage. Oh, I knew at once you were a man of great courage. I beg you to have pity on me. Will you not help me and kill my enemy, the Centipede? Hidesato felt very sorry for the Dragon King on hearing his story, and readily promised to do what he could to help him. The warrior asked where the Centipede lived. Turn the music down a little bit. Where the Centipede lived, so that he may attack the creature at once. The Dragon King replied that its home was on the mountain Mikami, but that as it came every night at the certain hour to the palace of the lake, it would be better to wait until then. So Hidesato was conducted to the palace of the Dragon King, under the bridge. Strange to say, as he followed his host downwards, the waters parted to let them pass, and his clothes did not even feel damp as he passed through the flood. Never had Hidesato seen anything so beautiful as the palace built of white marble beneath the lake. Ooh, it's like Minecraft building. This guy, the Dragon King, he must be great at Minecraft. Where am I? He had often heard of the Sea King's palace at the bottom of the sea, where all the servants and retainers were saltwater fishes. But here was a magnificent building in the heart of Lake Biwa. The dainty goldfishes, red carp, and silvery trout waited upon the Dragon King and his guests. Whoa! Could you imagine having like just a whole aquarium of fish do your bidding? You think that's what Aquaman does? Okay. Hidesato was astonished at the feast that was spread for him. The dishes were crystallized lotus leaves and flowers, and the chopsticks were of the rarest ebony. Wait, what is ebony anyways? I hear a lot... Music's a little low now. Like, you know, like in Skyrim, they have like ebony armor, which is like the second strongest heavy armor or actually the third strongest heavy armor actually. But yeah, I don't know what ebony is. Is it like kind of stone or kind of metal? Does anybody know? As soon as they sat down, the sliding doors opened and the 10 lovely goldfish dancers came out, and behind them followed 10 red carp musicians with the koto and the samisen. Thus the hours flew by till midnight, and the beautiful music and dancing had banished all thoughts of the centipede. The Dragon King was about to pledge the warrior in a fresh cup of wine when the palace was suddenly shaken by a tramp, as if a mighty army had begun to march not far away. Hidesato and his host both rose to their feet and rushed to the balcony, and the warrior saw on the opposite mountain 2 great balls of glowing fire coming nearer and nearer. The Dragon King stood by the warrior's side, trembling of fear. The centipede! The centipede! Those 2 balls of fire are its eyes. Well, fire eyes. It's like the anime when the character is super passionate or super motivated about their training or something. Anyways. It's coming for its prey. Now it's time to kill it. Hidesato looked where his host pointed, and in the dim of light of starlit every evening, behind the 2 balls of fire, he saw the long body of an enormous centipede winding around the mountain, and the light in its 100 feet glowed like so many distant lanterns moving towards the shore. Centipedes are kind of gross, actually, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are they? They're not as gross as like slugs or snails to me though, because they're not as slimy. But that being said, they're like, you know, the 100 legs. Aren't there millipedes too? Aren't their legs even smaller, but they have 1,000,000 legs? I could be wrong. I'm not an insect guy. Okay. Hidesato showed not the least sign of fear. He tried to calm the Dragon King. Don't be afraid. I shall surely kill the centipede. Just bring me my bow and arrows. The Dragon King did as he was bid, and the warrior noticed that he had only 3 arrows left in his quiver. He took the bow, and fitting an arrow to the notch, took careful aim and let it fly. The arrow hit the centipede right in the middle of the head, but instead of penetrating, it glanced off harmless and fell to the ground. Oh, it's an armored centipede. Interesting.
It's Toby.
What the? I haven't listened to the soundtrack before. Did you guys hear that? This guy said it's Toby. Nothing daunted, Hidesato took another arrow, fitted it to the notch of the bow, and let it fly. Again, the arrow hit the mark. It struck the centipede right in the middle of the head, only to glance off and fall to the ground. The centipede was invulnerable to weapons. When the Dragon King saw that even this brave warrior's arrows were powerless to kill the centipede, he lost heart and began to tremble in fear. What a wimp. This Dragon King can turn into a dragon, and he's just like, no, I'm scared. Centipede's scary. It's like that meme. It's like the buff Doge meme, and then the tiny sad Doge meme. Like, Hidesato is the buff one, and then Dragon King is the wimp. The warrior saw that he only had one arrow left in his quiver, and if this one failed, he could not kill the centipede. He looked across the waters. The huge reptile had wound its horrid body 7 times around the mountain and would soon come down to the lake. Nearer and nearer gleamed fireballs of eyes, and the light of its 100 feet began to throw reflections in the water of the lake. Then suddenly, the warrior remembered that he had heard that human saliva was deadly to centipedes. Is it? Is that true? But this was no ordinary centipede. This was a monstrous that even to think of such creature made one creep with horror. Hidesato determined to try his last chance, so he took his arrow, and first putting the end of it in his mouth, he fitted the notch to the bow, took careful aim once more, and let it fly. He put the arrow in his mouth. He's like, oh. Yummy, flint. Is that what they're made of at the time? I don't know. This time, the arrow again hit the centipede right in the middle of its head. But instead of glancing off harmlessly as before, it struck home to the creature's brain. Ew. Then, with a convulsive shudder, the serpentine body stopped moving, and the fiery light of its great eyes and 100 feet darkened to a dull glare like the sunset of a stormy day. And then went out in blackness. The great darkness now overspread the heavens. The thunder rolled and the lightning flashed, and the wind roared in fury, and it seemed as if the world were coming to an end. But was the centipede some kind of god? The Dragon King and his children and retainers all crouched in different parts of the palace, frightened to death, for the building was shaking to its foundation. At last the dreadful night was over. Day dawned, beautiful and clear. The centipede was gone from the mountain. Hidesato called the Dragon King to come out with him on the balcony, for the centipede was dead and he had nothing more to fear. Then all the inhabitants of the palace came out with joy, and Hidesato pointed to the lake. There lay the dead body of the centipede, floating in the water, which was dyed red with its blood. Is centipede blood red? Is it? I could have sworn it's like a different color from like human blood or like mammal blood in general. The gratitude of the Dragon King knew no bounds. The whole family came and bowed down before the warrior, calling him their preserver and bravest warrior in all of Japan. Another feast was prepared, with more sumptuous than the first. All kinds of fish. Wait. But the people, not the people. The servants and stuff. They're fish. You're telling me that? Oh, never mind. Okay, I need to finish this sentence. All kinds of fish prepared in every way imaginable, raw, stewed, boiled, roasted. Several of the coral trays and crystal dishes were put before him, and the wine was the best that Hidesato had ever tasted in his life. Okay, no, never mind. I was right. They ate his servants. They ate his servants. To add to the beauty of everything, the sun shone brightly and the lake glittered like a liquid diamond, and the palace was 1,000 times more beautiful by day than night. His host tried to persuade the warrior to stay a few days, but Hidesato insisted on going home, saying that he had now finished what he had come to do and must return. My throat keeps getting dry. The Dragon King and his family were all very sorry to have him leave so soon, but since he would go, they begged him to accept a few small presents, so they said, in token of their gratitude to him for delivering them forever from the horrible enemy the Centipede. Water break. Throat dry. Dry throat. As the warrior stood in the porch taking leave, a train of fish was suddenly transformed into a retinue of men, all wearing ceremonial robes, and the dragon's crown on their heads to show that they were servants of the great Dragon King. The presents that they carried are follows. First, a large bronze bell. Second, a bag of rice. They have rice in the sea? Or the lake? Third, a roll of silk. Fourth, a cooking pot. Fifth, a bell. Hidesato did not want to accept all the presents, but as the Dragon King insisted, he could not well refuse. The Dragon King himself accompanied the warrior as far as the bridge, and then he took leave of him with many bows. I think warrior and I immediately go to bow. Many bows and good wishes, leaving the procession of servants accompanying Hidesato to his house with the presents. The warrior's household and servants had been very much concerned when they found that he did not return the night before, but they finally concluded that he had been kept by the violent storm, and he had taken shelter somewhere. When the servants over the watch for his return caught sight of him, they called to everyone that he was approaching, and the whole household turned out to meet him, wondering much what the retinue of men bearing presents and banners that followed him could mean. As soon as the Dragon King's retainers had put down the presents, they vanished, and Hidesato told all that happened to him. The presents which he had received from the grateful Dragon King were found to be of magical power. The bell only was ordinary, and Hidesato had no use for it. He presented to the temple nearby, where it was hung up to boom out the hour of the day over the surrounding neighborhood. A single bag of rice, however, much was taken from it day after day for the meals of the night, and his whole family never grew less. The supply of the bag was inexhaustible. Ooh, forever rice. It's like forever burger, but in rice form. The roll of silk, too, never grew shorter, though time after time long pieces were cut off to make the warriors a new suit of clothes to go to court at the New Year. You have to go to court on the New Year? I thought the courthouse wasn't open on New Year's. The cooking pot was wonderful too. No matter what was put in, it cooked deliciously, whatever was wanted, without any firing. Truly a very economical saucepan. Ooh, yummy. The fame of Hidesato's fortune spread far and wide, and as there was no need for him to spend money on rice or silk or firing, he became very rich and prosperous. was henceforth known as My Lord Bag of Rice. The end. Yeah, yay, nice. That's a nice story. I don't really get the message though, the moral. Or is it just this guy real? I don't know what's the message. Is it that human saliva is poisonous to centipedes? Cause that might come in handy someday. That was good. I liked it. My only gripe is that after he killed the centipede, they fed him fish, but they live in the lake, and all the servants and retainers are fish. So that means they killed some of the retainers for him to eat, and I don't think that gives a good message. Okay, next story. Let's see. Okay, next we read The Tongue-Cut Sparrow. Okay, next story. Long, long ago in Japan, there lived an old man and his wife. I feel like have you guys played Ghost of Tsushima? And like the legend, not the legends. No, kind of the legend storytellers, but like not the artifacts. I don't know I forget what they call them. It's like the blue mission guys, and they tell you tales, and then you go and search for like the secret weapon or the secret technique. I feel like that. The old man was a good, kind-hearted, hard-working old fellow, but his wife was a regular crosspatch who spoiled the happiness of her home by her scolding tongue. She was always grumbling about something from morning to night. The old man had for a long time ceased to take any notice of her crossness. He was out most of the day at work in the fields, and just as he had no children. For his amusement, when he came home, he kept a tame sparrow. He loved that little bird just as much as if she had been his child. Oh, I like birdie. A sparrow, it's like a... Is a sparrow big? I don't think so, right? When he came back at night after his hard day's work in the open air, it was his only pleasure to pet the sparrow and talk to her and teach her little tricks, which she learned very quickly. The old man would open her cage and let her fly about the room, and they would play together. Then when supper time came, he always saved some tidbits from his meal with which to feed the little bird. Like what? I hope it's not chicken. That'd be weird. Hold on, let's pause. So, do you think the other fish, the fish servants ate the fish that they served him in the last story? I mean, I know that some fish eat other fish, but like... I mean, where is it cannibalism? I don't know. Now one day, the old man went out to chop wood in the forest, and the old woman stopped at home to wash clothes. The day before, she had made some starch, and now, when she came to look for it, it was all gone. The bowl, which she had filled full yesterday, was quite empty. While she was wondering who could have used or stolen the starch, down flew the pet sparrow, and bowing her little feathered head, a trick with which she had been taught by her master. The pretty bird chirped and said, what does the bird sound like? What does the bird sound? The bird would sound like me. It is I who have taken the starch. I thought it was some food out for me in the basin, and I ate it all. If I had made a mistake, I beg you to forgive me. Tweet, tweet, tweet. You see, from this, the sparrow was a truthful bird, and the old woman ought to have been willing to forgive her at once when she asked her pardon so nicely, but not so. Water break. I don't know why my throat's so sore. Or not sore, it's just really dry. Okay, here, where are we? Okay, here we are. The old woman had never loved the sparrow and had only quarreled with her husband for keeping what she called a dirty bird about the house, saying that it only made extra work for her. Now she was only too delighted to have some cause of complaint against the pet. She scolded and even cursed the poor little bird for her bad behavior, and not content with using these harsh, unfeeling words, in a fit of rage she seized the sparrow. Said a bunch of bad words to the sparrow, and now she grabbed him. Or her. He grabbed her. Who all this time had spread out her wings and bowed her head to the old woman to show how sorry she was, and fetched the scissors and cut off the poor little bird's tongue. Why? Okay, it's the old lady speaking. Her voice is, I suppose you took the starch with that tongue. Now you may see what it's like to go without it. And with these dreadful words, he drove the bird away, not caring in the least what might happen to it, and without the smallest pity for its suffering. So unkind was she. That's so mean. Why cut off the tongue? Why cut off the tongue? The old woman, after she had driven the sparrow away, made some rice paste, grumbling all the time at trouble. And after starching all her clothes, spread the things on the board in the dry sun instead of ironing them, as they do in England. When was this written? I don't know. In the evening, the old man came home. As usual, on the way back, he looked forward to the time he should reach his gate to see his pet come flying and chirping to meet him, ruffling out her feathers to show her joy, and at last coming to rest on his shoulder. But tonight, the old man was very disappointed, for not even a shadow of the dear sparrow was seen. Why? Where did she die? He quickened his steps, hastily drew off his straw sandals, stepped into the veranda. Still no sparrow was seen. He now felt sure that his wife, in one of her cross tempers, had shut the sparrow up in its cage. So he called her and said anxiously, "Where is Suzume-san?" Miss Sparrow, today. The old woman pretended to not know at first and answered, "Your sparrow? I'm sure I don't know. Now I come to think of it, I haven't seen her all afternoon. I shouldn't wonder if the ungrateful bird had flown away and left you after all your petting." But at last, when the old man gave her no peace, but asked her again and again, insisting that she must know what had happened to his pet, she confessed all. She told him crossly how the sparrow had eaten the rice paste she had specifically made for starching her clothes, and how when the sparrow had confessed to what she had done, in great anger she had taken her scissors and cut out her tongue. And how finally she had driven the bird away and forbidden her to return to the house again. Then the woman showed her husband the sparrow's tongue, saying, "Here is the tongue I cut off, horrid little bird. Why did it eat all my starch?" "How could you be so cruel? Oh, how could you be so cruel?" was all that the old man could answer. He was too kind-hearted to punish his beshrew a wife. But he was terribly distressed at what had happened to his poor little sparrow. "What a dreadful misfortune for my poor Suzume-san to lose her tongue. He said to himself, "She won't be able to chirp anymore, and surely the pain of cutting off it out in that rough way must have made her ill. Is there nothing to be done?" The old man shed many tears after his cross wife had gone to sleep. While he wiped away the tears with the sleeve of his cotton robe, a bright thought comforted him. He would go and look for the sparrow on the morrow. Having decided this, he was able to go to sleep at last. Do they sleep in the same bed then? The next morning he rose early as soon as ever the day broke. Snatching a hasty breakfast, started out over the hills through the woods, stopping at every clump of bamboo to cry, "Where, oh where does my tongue-cut sparrow stay? Where, oh where does my tongue-cut sparrow stay?" He never stopped to rest for his noonday meal, and it was far on in the afternoon that when he found himself near a large bamboo wood. Bamboo groves are the favorite haunts of sparrows, and there, sure enough, at the edge of the wood, he saw his own dear sparrow waiting to welcome him. He could hardly believe his eyes for joy and ran forward to quickly greet her. I have to burp. Excuse me. She bowed her little head and went through a number of the tricks her master had taught her to show her pleasure to seeing her old friend again, and wonderful to relate he could talk as of old. The old man told her how sorry he was for all that had happened, and inquired after her tongue, wondering how she could speak so well without it. The sparrow opened her beak and showed him that a new tongue had grown in its place of the old one, and begged him not to think any more about the past, for she was quite well now. How did he grow? Is that a thing? Do birds grow their tongue back? Then the old man knew that his sparrow was a fairy, and no common bird. It would be difficult to exaggerate the old man's rejoicing. He forgot all his troubles. He forgot even how tired he was, for he had found his lost sparrow, and instead of being ill without a tongue, he had feared and expected to find her. She was well and happy, and with a new tongue, and without sign of the ill treatment she had received from his wife. And above all, she was a fairy. The sparrow asked him to follow her, and flying before him, she led him to a beautiful house in the heart of the bamboo grove. The old man was utterly astonished when he entered the house to find what a beautiful place it was. It was built of the whitest wood. The soft cream-colored mats which took the place of carpets were the finest he had ever seen. The cushions that the sparrow brought out for him to sit on were made of the finest silk, and crepe. Beautiful vases and lacquer boxes adorned the tokonoma of every room. The sparrow led the old man to the place of honor. Then, taking her place at a humble distance, she thanked him with many polite bows for the kindness he had shown her for many years. Is she great at Minecraft too? Is what's her name? Suzume. Is Suzume good at Minecraft also? Then the Lady Sparrow, as we will call her now, introduced all her family to the old man. This done, her daughters, robed in dainty crepe gowns, brought in on a beautiful old-fashioned trays of feast of all kinds of delicious food. So the old man began to think he must be dreaming. In the middle of dinner, some of the sparrow's daughters performed a wonderful dance called the Suzume Odori, or the sparrows dance, to amuse the guest. Hope they don't serve him like any poultry, that'd be kinda weird. Never had the old man enjoyed himself so much. The hours flew by too quickly in this lovely spot, which all the fairy sparrows to wait upon him and feast him and to dance before him. But the night came on, and the darkness reminded him that he had a long way to go, and must think about taking his leave and returning home. He thanked his kind hostess for her splendid entertainment, and begged her for his sake to forget all he had suffered at the hands of his cross old wife. He told the Lady Sparrow that it was a great comfort and happiness to him to find her in such a beautiful home, and to know that she wanted for nothing. It was his anxiety to know how she fared and what had really happened to her that had led him to seek her. Now he knew that all was well. He could return home with a light heart. If he ever wanted him for anything, she had only to send for him, and he would come at once. The Lady Sparrow begged him to stay and rest several days and enjoy the change, but the old man said he must return to his old wife, who would probably be cross at him for not coming home at the usual time, and to his work, and therefore, much as he wished to do so, could not accept her kind invitation. But now that he knew where the Lady Sparrow lived, he would come to see her whenever he had time. That's nice. That's nice. It's like visiting your friend who lives in a different city. When the Lady Sparrow saw that she could not persuade the old man to stay any longer, she gave an order to some of her servants, and they all at once brought 2 boxes, one large, the other small. These were placed before the old man, and Lady Sparrow asked him to choose whichever he liked for a present, which she wished to give him. The old man could not refuse this kind proposal, and he chose the smaller box, saying, "I'm now too old and feeble to carry the big and heavy box. Are you so kind as to say that I may take whichever I like? I would choose the small one, which would be easier for me to carry." The sparrows all helped him put it on his back. How big is the big and how big is the small? Put it on his back and went to the gate to see him off, bidding him goodbye with many bows, and entreating him to come again whenever he had time. Thus the old man and his pet sparrow separated quite happily. The sparrow showing not the least ill will for all the unkindness she had suffered at the hands of his old wife. Indeed, she only felt sorrow for the old man who had to put up with it all his life. When the old man reached home, he found his wife even crosser than usual, for he was laid out. Huh? The music stopped. Hang on. Oh, interesting. Whatever. Okay, and she's mad, whatever. "Where have you been all this time?" she asked in a big voice. "Why do you come back so late?" The old man tried to pacify her by showing her the box of presents he had brought back with him. And then he told her all that had happened to him, and how wonderfully he had been entertained at the sparrow's house. "Now, let us see what's in the box," said the old man, not giving her time to grumble again. "You must help me open it," as they sat down before the box and opened it. Water break. Dry throat. To their utter astonishment, they found the box filled to the brim with gold and silver coins, and many other precious things. The mats of their little cottage fairly glittered as they took the things out one by one and put them down and handled them over and over again. The old man was overjoyed at the sight of the riches that were now his. Beyond the brightest expectations was the sparrow's gift, which would enable him to give up work and live in ease and comfort for the rest of his days. He said, Thanks to my good little sparrow, thanks to my good little sparrow, many times. But the old woman, after the first moments of surprise and satisfaction at the sight of gold and silver were over, could not suppress her greed and wicked nature. He now began to reproach the old man for not having brought home the big box for presents. For in the innocence of his heart, he had told her how he could have refused the large box of presents which the sparrow had offered him, preferring the smaller one because it was light and easy to carry home. "You silly old man," she said. "Why did you not bring the large box? Just think what we could have lost. We might have had twice as much silver and gold as this. You are certainly an old fool," she screamed and then went to bed angry as she could be. This guy's wife is like the Hose Mad song. The old man wished that he had said nothing about the big box, but it was too late. The greedy old woman was not content with the good luck which had so unexpected befallen them, and so she befallen them, and which she so little deserved, made up her mind, if possible, to get more. Early the next morning, she got up and made the old man describe the way to the sparrow's house. When he saw what was in her mind, he tried to keep her from going, but it was useless. He would not listen to one word he said. It was strange that the old woman did not feel ashamed about going to see the sparrow after the cruel way she treated her and cutting off her tongue in a fit of rage. But her greed to get the big box made her forget everything else. It did not even enter her thoughts that the sparrow might be angry with her, as indeed they were, and might punish her for what she had done. Is it gonna be like a plot twist? The big box is just gonna be full of stones? Ever since the Lady Sparrow had returned home in the sad plight in which they had first found her, weeping and bleeding from the mouth, her whole family and relations had done little else but speak of the cruelty of the old woman. "How could she," they asked each other, "inflict such a heavy punishment on such a trifling offense as that of eating some rice paste by mistake?" Yes, they sound like Mickey Mouse. They all loved the old man, who was so kind and good and patient under all his troubles, but the old woman they hated, and they determined, if they ever had the chance, to punish her as she deserved. They had not long to wait. After waiting for some hours, the old woman had at last found the bamboo grove which she had made her husband carefully describe, and now she stood before crying out, "Where is the Tongue-Cut Sparrow's house? Where is the Tongue-Cut Sparrow's house?" At last she saw the eaves of the house peeping out from amongst the bamboo foliage. Foliage. She hastened to the door and knocked loudly. When the servants told Lady Sparrow that her old mistress was at the door asking to see her, she said something. She was somewhat surprised at an unexpected visit. After all that had taken place, and she'd wondered not a little about the boldness of the old woman venturing to come to her house. The Lady Sparrow, however, was a polite bird, and so she went to greet the old woman, remembering that she had once been her mistress. The old woman intended, however, to waste no time. She went right to the point, without the least shame, and said, "You need not trouble to entertain me as you did my old man. I have come myself to get the box which he was stupidly left behind. I shall soon take my leave if you will give me the big box. That's all I want. The Lady Sparrow at once consented, and took her servants to bring out the big box. The old woman eagerly seized it and hoisted it onto her back. She's gonna break her back. And without even stopping to think, the Lady Sparrow began to hurry homeward. The box was so heavy that she could not walk fast, much less run, as she would have liked to. So anxious was she to get home and see what was inside the box, that she had often to sit down and rest herself by the way. While she was staggering along under the heavy load, her desire to open the box became too great to be resisted. She could wait no longer, for she supposed this big box to be full of gold and silver and precious jewels like the small one her husband had received. At last, this greedy and selfish woman put down the box by the wayside and opened it carefully, expecting to gloat her eyes on a mine of wealth. What she saw, however, so terrified her that she nearly lost her senses. As soon as she lifted the lid, a number of horrible and frightful-looking demons bounced out of the box and surrounded her, as if they intended to kill her. Pandora's box, right? A demon with one huge eye right in the middle of its forehead came and glared at her. The monsters were with gaping mouths looked as if they would devour her. A huge snake coiled and hissed about her, and a big frog hopped and croaked towards her. The old woman had never been so frightened in her life, and ran from the spot so fast her quaking legs carried her, glad to escape alive. When she reached home, she fell to the floor and told her husband with tears all that had happened, and how she had been nearly killed by the demons in the box. Then she began to blame the sparrow, but the old man stopped her at once, saying, "Don't blame the sparrow. It is your wickedness which has at last met its reward. I only hope this may be a lesson to you in the future." The old man said nothing more, and from that day she repented of her cross, unkind ways, and by degrees she became a good old woman, so that her husband hardly knew her to be the same person, and they spent their last days together happily, free from want or care, spending carefully the treasure the old man had received from his pet, the Tongue-Cut Sparrow. Yay! Yay. I thought she was gonna die. I think it's actually better that she just learned her lesson and became nice. That was a good story. I liked that. Kinda weird that they were fairies though. Okay. Throat's a little dry. The next story is kinda short, but that's fine. Cause we've almost been going for an hour, and my throat's really dry for some reason. Okay, this is the story of Ushimataro, the fisher lad. Long, long ago, in the province of Tongo, there lived on the shore of Japan, in the little fishing village of Mizunoye, a young fisherman named Ushimataro. His father had been a fisherman before him, and his skill had more than doubly descended to his son, for Urashima was the most skillful fisherman in all the countryside, and could catch more bonita and tai in a day than his comrades could in a week. Water break, drink more water. But in the little fishing village, more than for being a clever fisher at the sea, was he known for his kind heart. In his whole life, he had never hurt anything, either great or small. And when a boy, his companions had always laughed at him, for he would never join with them in teasing animals, always tried to keep them from this cruel sport. I don't really get why. Like you see like cartoons and anime, and then it's like there's like young hoodlums, and they're like bullying a little puppy or a stray cat. Do people really do that? Sure that they do, but I don't know. One soft summer twilight, he was going home to the end of the day. At the end of his day of his fishing, when he came upon a group of children. They were all screaming and talking at the top of their voices, and seemed to be in a state of great excitement about something. And on his going up to see them, to see what was the matter, he saw that they were tormenting a tortoise. Why? Excuse me. First, one boy pulled it this way, and another boy pulled it that way, while the third child beat it with a stick, and the fourth hammered the shell with a stone. Why you hurt the turtle, Mr. Tortoise? Now Urashima felt sorry for the poor tortoise and made up his mind to rescue it. He spoke to the boys. Look here, boys. You're treating that poor tortoise so badly that it'll die soon. That's his voice. He just sounds really deep voice guy. The boys, who were all of an age when children seem to delight in being cruel to animals, took no notice to Urashima's gentle reproof, but went on teasing it as before. One of the older boys answered, Who cares whether it lives or dies? We don't. Here, boys, go on, go on. Oh. And they began to treat the poor tortoise even more cruelly than ever. Urashima waited a moment, turning over his mind. What would be the best way to deal with the boys? Fight them. It's time to battle. Challenge them. He would try to persuade them to give the tortoise up to him. So he smiled and said, I'm sure you are all good, kind boys now. Now, won't you give me the tortoise? I should like to have it so much. No, we want the tortoise, said one of the boys. Why should we? We caught it ourselves. What you say is true, said Urashima, but I do not ask you to give me it for nothing. I will give you some money for it. In other words, the Oji-san will buy it from you. Won't that do for you, my boys? He held up the money to them, strung in on a piece of string through a hole in the center of each coin. Look, boys, you can buy anything like you like with this money. You can do much more with this money than you can with that poor tortoise. Do what good boys you are and listen to me. The boys were not bad boys at all. They were only mischievous. And as Urashima spoke, they were won by his kind smile and gentle words, and began to be of his spirit. And they, as they say in Japan, gradually they all came up to him, the ringleader of the little band, holding out the tortoise to him. Very well, Oji-san. Oji-san, we will give you the tortoise, and if you will give us the money. And Urashima took the tortoise and gave the money to the boys, who, calling out to each other, scampered away and were soon out of the sight. Then Urashima stroked the tortoise's back, saying as he did so, Oh, you poor thing, there. You're safe now. They say that a stork lives for 1,000 years, but a tortoise for 10,000 years. You have the longest life of any creature in the world, and you were in great danger of having that precious life cut short by the cruelty of those boys. Luckily, I was passing by and saved you, and so your life is still yours. Now I'm going to take you back to your home. See, wait, tortoise don't live in the sea. Turtles live in the sea, tortoise live in like the desert. Or like islands or something. Take you home to the sea at once. Do not let yourself be caught again, for there might be no one to save you next time. All that time the fisherman was speaking, he was walking quickly to the shore and out upon the rocks, then put the tortoise into the water, and he watched the animal disappear. He turned homewards. He turned homewards himself, for he was tired, and the sun had set. The next morning, Urashima went out as usual on his boat. The weather was fine, the sea and sky were both blue and soft in the tender haze of summer morning. Urashima got into his boat and dreamily pushed out to the sea. Throwing his line as he did, he soon passed the other fishing boats and left them behind him till they were lost to sight in the distance. And his boat drifted further and further out upon the blue waters. Somehow he knew not why, he felt unusually happy that morning, and he could not help wishing that, like the tortoise he had set free the day before, he had thousands of years to live instead of his own short span of human life. Do you think tortoises and turtles ever get tired of living? Because I know humans do. He was suddenly startled from his reverie by hearing his own name called. Urashima! Urashima! Clear as a bell and soft as a summer wind name floated over the sea. He stood up and looked in every direction, thinking that one of the other boats had overtaken him. But gaze as he might over the wide expanse of water, near or far, there was no sign of a boat. The voice could not have been someone from a human being. Startled and wondering who or what it was that called him out so clearly, he looked in all directions round about him and saw, without his knowing, it was the tortoise who had come to the side of his boat. Urashima saw with surprise that it was the very tortoise he had rescued the day before. "Well, Mr. Tortoise," said Urashima, "was it you who called me just now?" The tortoise nodded its head several times and said, he's like a slow guy. He's like really slow." "Yes, it was I. Yesterday, in your honorable shadow, Okage-sama de, my life was saved, and I have come to offer you my thanks, and to tell you how grateful I am for your kindness to me." "Indeed," said Urashima. "That is very polite of you. Come up to the boat. I would offer you a smoke, but you're a tortoise, doubtless. You do not smoke." And the fisherman laughed at the joke. "Ha ha 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 ha!" He, laughed the tortoise. "Sake is my favorite refreshment, but I do not care for tobacco." "Indeed," said Urashima. "I regret very much that I have no sake in my boat to offer you, but come up and dry your back in the sun. Tortoises always love to do that." So the tortoise climbed into the boat, the fisherman helping him, and after an exchange of complimentary speeches, the tortoise said, "Have you ever seen the Ringin, the palace of the Dragon King of the Sea, Urashima?" Is that the Dragon King from the last story? From the first story, I should say. The fisherman shook his head and replied, "No, year after year the sea's been my home, but though I have heard of the Dragon King's realm under the sea, I have yet to set eyes on such a wonderful place. It must be very far away, if it exists at all." "Is that really so? You have never even seen the Sea King's palace? Then you have missed seeing one of the most wonderful sights in the whole universe. It is far away at the bottom of the sea, but if I take you there, we shall reach the palace. If you would like to see the Sea King's land, I will be your guide." I should like to go there, certainly, and you are very kind to think of taking me. But you must remember that I am only a poor mortal, and have not the power of swimming like a sea creature such as yourself. But tortoises can't swim. Wait, do they mean turtle? I'm just gonna assume they mean turtle, not tortoise. Before the fisherman could say more, the turtle stopped him. He's like, shh, shh, shh. He's like, do the thing where you put your finger on their lips. He's like, shh, shh, shh. What? You need not swim yourself. I will ride you on my back. I will take you without any trouble on your part. But, Urashima said, how is it possible for me to ride on your small back? Oh, he made fun of him. It may seem absurd to you, but I assure you that you can do so. Try it once. Just come on and get on my back, and see if it's impossible as you think. As the tortoise finished speaking, Urashima looked at its shell. Strange to say, he saw that the creature had suddenly grown so big that a man could easily sit on his back. This is so strange, said Urashima. Then, Mr. Tortoise, with your kind permission, I will get on your back. Doko shio? He exclaimed as he jumped on. Or dokoisho? I don't know how to say it. Dokoisho. Or is it doko isho? Doko isho? I don't know. I don't speak Japanese. The tortoise, with an unmoved face, as if this strange proceeding were quite an ordinary event, said, Now we will set out at our leisure. And with the words, he leapt into the sea with Urashima on his back. Down through the water the tortoise dived. For a long time those two strange companions rowed through the sea. How long? Like 2 years? Urashima never grew tired, nor his clothes moist with the water. At last, far away in the distance, a magnified gate appeared, and behind the gate, the long sloping roofs of a palace of the horizon. Yeah, that's what he said. He said, yeah, exclaimed Urashima. That looks like the gate of some large palace just appearing. Mr. Tortoise, can you tell me what the place is we can see now? That is the great gate of Rinkin Palace. The large roof you see behind the gate is the Sea King's palace itself. Then we have at last come to the realm of the Sea King, and to his palace, said Urashima. Yes, indeed, answered the tortoise. Don't you think we have come very quickly? And while he was speaking, the tortoise reached to the side of the gate. And here we are, and you must please walk from here. The tortoise now went in front, and speaking to the gatekeeper said, This is Ushimataro from the country of Japan. I have had the honor of bringing him to visit this kingdom. Please show him the way. The gatekeeper, who was a fish, at once led the way through the gate before them. Are they gonna feed him fish again with the fish? The red bream, the flounder, the sole, the cuttlefish, and all the chief vassals of the Dragon King of the Sea now came out with courtly bows to welcome the stranger. Urashima-sama, welcome to the Sea Palace, and home to the Dragon King of the Sea. Thrice welcome are you, having come from such a distant country. Well, how far is it? And you, Mr. Tortoise, we are greatly indebted to you for all your trouble bringing Urashima here. Then turning again to Urashima, they said, Please follow us this way. And from here, the whole band of fishies became his guides. They're not mad at him, but he's a fisherman. Wouldn't they be mad at him? Urashima, being a poor fisher lad, did not know how to behave in a palace, but strange though, it was all to him. He did not feel ashamed or embarrassed. He had followed his kind guides quite calmly, where they led him to the inner palace. When he reached the portals, a beautiful princess with her attendant maidens came out to welcome him. I have to sneeze. It's gone. She was more beautiful than any human being and was robed in flowing garments of red and soft green, like the underside of a wave, and golden threads glimmered through the folds of her gown. Her lovely black hair streamed over her shoulders in the fashion of a king's daughter many hundreds of years ago. I still feel like I have to sneeze. And when she spoke, her voice sounded like music over the water. Hey, that's a good question. How can they hear underwater? Or how can they hear as well? Because like the sound waves they like have a harder time vibrating through the water molecules, right? Anyways, Urashima was lost in wonder while he looked upon her and could not speak. He's like, he looks like this right now. Hold on. He looks like this right now. That's what he looks like right now. Let me put my glasses back on. Then he remembered that he ought to bow, but before he could make a low obeisance, the princess took him by the hand and led him to the beautiful hall, and they sat to the seat of honor at the upper end. They bade him be seated. Ushimataro, give me great pleasure to welcome you to my father's kingdom, said the princess. Yesterday, you set free a tortoise, and I have sent for you to thank you for saving my life. Huh? You set free a tortoise, and I have sent for you to thank you for saving my life? What? For I was the tortoise. What? Possible. How is it possible? Now, if you like, you shall live here forever in the land of eternal youth, where summer never dies, and where sorrow never comes. I will be your bride if you will, and we will live happily together, happily forever afterwards. And as Urashima listened to her sweet words, gazed upon her lovely face, his heart was filled with a great wonder and joy. He answered her, wondering if it was not all a dream. That's pretty crazy, to marry a turtle or a tortoise. Thank you 1,000 times for your kind speech. There's nothing I could wish more than to be permitted to stay here with you in this beautiful land, of which I have never even heard of, but have never seen this day. Beyond all words, this is the most wonderful place I've ever seen. While he was speaking, a train of fishes appeared, all dressed in ceremonial trailing garments. One by one, silently with stated steps, they entered the hall bearing on coral trays delicacies of fish. They're feeding him fish again! What is this? You can't feed fish, or you can't be a fish and serve fish. You have to be a fish and serve seaweed, or something. Such as no one can dream of, and this wondrous feast was set before the bride and bridegroom. Isn't it just the bride and groom? The bridal was celebrated with dazzling splendor, and the Sea King's realm there was great rejoicing. As soon as the young pair had pledged themselves in the wedding cup of wine, 3 times 3, music was played. 3 times 3 is 9. Music was played and the songs were sung. The fish with silver scales and golden tails stepped in from the waves and danced. Urashima enjoyed himself with all his heart. Never in his whole life had he sat down to such a marvelous feast. Isn't that a little weird though? Like, you go to an undersea castle, or undersea kingdom, and like the princess is a shape-shifting human tortoise amphibian, but all the servants and stuff are all the servants are fish. Isn't that a little weird? Okay, where was I? Okay. When the feast was over, the princess asked the bridegroom if he would like to walk through the palace and see all there was to be seen. Then the happy fisherman, following his bride, the Sea King's daughter, I love the naming or the titles, was shown all the wonders of the enchanted land where youth and joy go hand in hand, and neither time nor age can touch them. The palace was built of coral and adorned with pearls, and the beautiful wonders of the place was so great that the tongue fails to describe them. But to Urashima, more wonderful than the palace was the garden that surrounded it. There's a garden underwater, a coral garden, a coral reef. Is this in Australia? Here was to be seen at one time the scenery of 4 different seasons. The beauties of summer and winter, spring and autumn were displayed to the wandering visitor at once. First, when he looked to the east, the plum and cherry trees were seen in full bloom. The nightingales sang in the pink avenues, and the butterflies flitted from flower to flower. Butterflies underwater. How is that possible? Are they in a big glass dome? Looking at the south, all the trees were green in the fullness of summer, and the day cicala and the night cricket chirped loudly. Looking at the west, autumn maples were ablaze like sunset sky, and the chrysanthemums were in perfection. Looking at the north, the change made Urashima start, for the ground was silver white with snow, and trees and bamboos were covered with snow, and a pond thick with ice. I want to play in the snow, but it's still too hot. And each day there were new joys and new wonders for Urashima. And so great was his happiness that he forgot everything, even the home he had left behind, and his parents, and his own country. And 3 days passed without him even thinking of all he had left behind. Then his mind came back to him, and he remembered who he was. This guy forgot who he was, and that he did not belong in this wonderful land or the Sea King's palace. And he said to himself, "Oh dear, I must not stay here, for I have an old father and mother at home. What can have happened to them all this time? How anxious they must have been these days when I had not returned as usual. I must go back at once, without letting any more days pass." As he began to prepare for the journey in great haste, then he went to his beautiful wife, the princess, and bowing low to her, he said, "Indeed, I have been very happy with you for a long time, Otohime-sama, but it's only been 3 days. And you have been kinder to me than any words can tell. Now I must say goodbye. I must go back to my old parents." Then Otohime-sama began to weep, and said softly and sadly, "Is it not well with you, dear Urashima, that you wish to leave me so soon? Why is this? Where is the haste? Stay with me yet another day only." But Urashima had remembered his old parents, and in Japan the duty to parents is stronger than everything else, stronger even than pleasure or love, and he would not be persuaded but answered, "Indeed, I must go. But do not think I wish to leave you. It is not that. I must go and see my old parents. Let me go for 1 day, and I will come back for you." "Then," said the princess sorrowfully, There's nothing to be done. I will send you back today to your father and mother, and instead of trying to keep you with me for one more day, I shall give you this as a token of our love. Please take it back with you. He brought him a beautiful lacquer box tied with silken cord and tassels of red silk. Urashima had received so much from the princess already and felt some compunction in taking the gift and said, "It does not seem right for me to take yet another gift from you after all the many favors I have received at your hand. But because it is your wish, I will do so." Yeah, I feel bad taking it, but I'll take it. Tell me, what is this box? That, answered the princess, is a tamete bako, a box of jewel hand. And it contains something very precious. You must not open this box, whatever happens. If you open it, something dreadful will happen to you. Now promise me that you will never open this box. Eh? Wait, then why give him the box? And Urashima promised that he would never open the door, or open the box, whatever happened. Then, bidding goodbye to Otohime-sama, he went down to the seashore. The princess and her attendants following him, and there he found a large tortoise waiting for him. What? But I thought she was the tortoise. He quickly mounted the creature's back and was carried away over the shining sea into the east. He looked back to wave his hand to Otohime. Wait, this doesn't make sense. I thought she was the tortoise. But there's another tortoise. Is she a clone? So he could see her no more, and the land of the Sea of Kings and the roof of the palace were lost in the far, far distance. Then, with his face turned eagerly towards his own land, he looked for the rising of the blue hills of the horizon before him. At last, the tortoise carried him into the bay he knew so well, and the shore from whence he had set out. He stepped onto the shore and looked about him while the tortoise rode away, back to the Sea Kingdom's realm. What is this strange fear that seizes Urashima as he stands and looks about him? Why does he gaze so fixedly at the people that pass him by? And why do they turn and stand to look at him? The shore is the same, and the hills are the same. The people that he sees walking past him are very different faces to those he had known so well before. Wondering what it can mean, he walks towards his old home. Even that looks different, but a house stands on the spot, and he calls out, "Father, I have returned. Tadaima, as they say." And he was about to enter. Saw a strange man coming out. Perhaps your parents have moved out a while. I've been away, and have gone somewhere else. Was the that was wrong. Perhaps my parents had moved away while I was gone, and have gone somewhere else. Was the fisherman's thought. Somehow he had begun to feel strangely anxious, and could not tell why. Excuse me, said he to the man who was staring at him, but till within the last few days, I have lived in this house. My name is Ushimataro. Where are my parents gone, whom I have left here? A very bewildered expression of the face of the man. Still gazing intently at Urashima's face, he said, "What? Are you Ushimataro?" "Yes," said the fisherman. "I am Ushimataro." "Yeah," said the old man. "You must not make such jokes. It is true that once upon a time a man called Ushimataro lived in the village. But that is a story 300 years old. He could not possibly be alive now." When Ushimataro heard these strange words, he was frightened and said, Please, you must not joke with me. I'm greatly perplexed. I really am Ushimataro, and I certainly have not lived 300 years. Till 4 or 5 days ago, I lived on this spot. Tell me what I want to know. No more joking, please." But the man's face grew more and more grave, and he answered, "You may or may not be Ushimataro. I don't know. But Ushimataro, of whom I've heard a man who lived 300 years ago. Perhaps you are a spirit, came to revisit your old home? Do you mock me? Said Urashima. I am no spirit, I'm a living man. Do you not see my feet? And Don, he stomped on his ground first with one foot, then with the other to show the man. But Ushimataro lived 300 years ago. That is all I know. It is written in the village chronicles, persisted the man, who could no longer believe what the fisherman said. It's kind of sad. He's gone for 300 years. Urashima was lost in bewilderment and trouble. He stood looking around him, very terribly puzzled, and indeed, something in the appearance of everything was so different that he remembered before he went away. And the awful feeling came over him that what the man said was perhaps true. He seemed to be in a strange dream. The first days he spent in the Sea King's palace beyond the sea had not been days at all. They had been but hundreds of years, and in that time his parents had died and all the people he had ever known and the village had written down his story. There was no use in staying here any longer. He must get back to his beautiful wife beyond the sea. He made his way back to the beach, carrying in hand the box the princess had given him. But which way? But which is the way? He could not find it alone. Suddenly he remembered the box, the tamate bako. The princess told me when she gave me the box to never open it, that it contained a very precious thing. But now that I have no home, now that I have lost everything that is dear to me here, and my heart grows thin with sadness at such time, if I open the box, I'll surely find something that will help me. Something that will show me the way back to my beautiful princess over the sea. It's probably gonna end bad. There is nothing else for me to do now. Yes, I will open the box and look in. And so his heart consented to act of disobedience. He tried to persuade himself that he was doing the right thing, breaking his promise. Slowly, very slowly, he untied the red silk cord. Slowly and wonderingly, he lifted the box, or the lid in the precious box. And what did he find? Strange to say, only a beautiful little purple cloud rose out of the box in 3 soft wisps. For an instant, it covered his face and wavered all around him, as if to loath to go, and then it floated away like vapor over the sea. Urashima, who had been till that moment like a strong and handsome youth of 24, suddenly became very old. His back doubled with age, his hair turned snowy white, his face wrinkled, and he fell down dead on the beach. It was some kind of aging serum. Poor Urashima! Because of his disobedience, he could never return to the Sea King's realm, or the lovely princess beyond the sea. Little children, never be disobedient to those who are wiser than you, for disobedience was the beginning of all miseries and sorrows in life. What? But what about saving the turtle? What about all that? What a lame ending. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's not nice. It's not very nice. Why did she give that to him? It's like, here's this box. If you open it, you'll die. But I'm gonna give it to you anyways. It doesn't make any sense. I'm upset. I'm actually upset. Oh well. That's gonna do it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know that this was a little bit different. Tomorrow I'll be playing Minecraft though. But yeah, if you guys liked it, just let me know in the comments. If you guys don't like it, also let me know. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you did, I'll see you next time. Bye everybody, bye. Oh, I'll see you tomorrow, I mean.